Talk, more talk, chat, more chat.
Hi, 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 and hey, hey, and welcome back to another episode of Talk More Talk, a solo Beatles videocast where we talk exclusively about the solo careers of the Beatles. Once in a while, we might cover the band, but usually we talk about the solo careers of John, Paul, George, and Ringo on this show. I'm Ken Michaels. I'm one of the three co-hosts for this program. You might be familiar with my radio show on the Beatles, a syndicated show called Every Little Thing. I also do another talk show podcast called Things We Said Today, which includes one of the co-hosts on this show, Darren DeVivo. And I also have my own YouTube channel called Ken Michaels Radio, which is devoted entirely to the Beatles. I'm being joined by my two regulars. I just mentioned Darren. Darren, you know, for the Things We Said Today podcast and for 40 plus years on New York's WFUV. As you can tell from his backdrop, he's still waiting for another version of McCartney 3 to come out. And Darren, how you doing?
Good, Ken. Good to see you. Great to see you, Kit.
Great to see you.
And of course, we have Kit O'Toole, who is the author of several books, including Songs We Were Singing, Guided Tours through the Beatles' lesser known tracks, also Michael Jackson FAQ, All That's Left to Know About the King of Pop, Fandom in the Beatles, which she collaborated on with our colleague Ken Womack. She's also co-host of another Beatles podcast, a very different one in concept, called Toppermost of the Poppermost. She does all kinds of seminars online, sometimes with Ken Womack, sometimes solo. She's all over the place.
Yes.
She is the queen of Beatles social media. Kit O'Toole, hello.
Hello, Ken. That was a wonderful introduction. And hello, Darren.
Hey, Kit.
And hi, everybody out there.
Hello,
Thanks,
everyone.
folks, for being patient with us. It's been a few extra weeks since our last show. This time out, we're going to be covering a topic that's kind of interesting. Paul McCartney's duets. And the reason why I thought we should do this is because of the recent release of My Valentine, Paul teaming up with the legendary Barbra Streisand. So we're going to be talking about, well, I hope it's all of Paul McCartney's duets in his solo career. There is a chance that we might have forgotten one or two. If we have, and you can come across it, please let us know. But we'll be talking about that throughout most of the program. But as usual, we have a lot of Beatle news to get to, especially since it's been several weeks since our last show. As you know, it's been a brutal last few weeks for celebrity deaths. And just a few days ago, Ozzy Osbourne passed away at the age of 76. Now, you might be saying, what does Ozzy Osbourne have to do with the Beatles? Well, to me, even though musicians can be stereotyped for a certain genre of music, in this case, Ozzy being one of the biggest and greatest names in heavy metal, he was also a bona fide Beatles fan, which goes to show that in all walks of life, no matter how you're classified musically, the Beatles crossed all borders and genres of music. He once listed 10 of his favorite Beatles songs, from She Loves You to The Long and Winding Road. He met Paul McCartney when Paul was being interviewed by Howard Stern, and he really acted like a fan around Paul, not like an equal colleague, but like many of us might. Also, through Mark Hudson, Ozzy appeared on Ringo's Vertical Man album, singing backing vocals on the title track. And in 2010, Ozzy covered John Lennon's song How, which he released as a single, with proceeds going to benefit Amnesty International. Now, this was a pretty good version, and it was done to celebrate what would have been John's 70th birthday. And what you might be very impressed with was the video that Ozzy made for this. It's a really nice video where he's seen walking through the streets of New York. And towards the end, he's in front of the Dakota building. And at the very end, he goes into Strawberry Fields. And he's been carrying a bouquet of flowers, and he lays them down at the Imagine mosaic. It's a very simple idea, but very effective. Um, Ozzy died on July 22nd, just weeks after he gave his final performance, which was with Black Sabbath in Birmingham, England. So sorry to hear of Ozzy Osbourne's passing.
I remember reading years ago that he picked Band on the Run as his all-time favorite album.
Wow.
Really?
Mm.
This was a while back, I remember, and it struck me a little odd that it would be that one. Not that it's not an album to to pick in that category, but I figured he would go for the Beatles. But um, he was going crazy praising. He was going crazy on the Crazy Train, praising Band on the Run.
Yeah.
Good
Wow.
for him.
And I'm glad you mentioned that cover of How. I totally forgot about
Yeah.
that. Yeah, and the video, which as you said, very moving, simple but very moving and good cover. So thanks for mentioning that because I totally forgot about it.
Well, it's one that always sticks out in my mind because How is not a song that is covered that often. It's not as well known as so many of other John Lennon solo songs. And I'm really glad that somebody well known as Ozzy would cover that one and give it
Yeah.
some attention. Also, I have to mention that Vince Calabria has died. He stood in for George Harrison when they were rehearsing for the Beatles' debut on the Ed Sullivan Show. Initially, it was Neil Aspinall who stood in for George, but he was called away when he learned that Louise Harrison, George's sister, was being refused entry into a hotel. Calabria said he had instant rapport with the Beatles. John Lennon asked him if Buddy Holly and the Crickets ever played on the show, and Calabria said, "If you move 2 steps to your right, that's where Buddy stood." He also held cards for the Beatles. Vince Calabria was 91.
Hmm.
Wow.
The biggest news, of course, of the last few weeks is Paul McCartney announcing a U.S. tour beginning September 29th in Palm Desert, California, running through November 25th in Chicago. It's got to end in Chicago. And why? Because of
First
Kit.
of all, because it's awesome, and secondly, yeah, it's for me.
That's right. At first, a total of 19 dates, 3 of which are in Canada. He just added one show in San Antonio, Texas. That's for October 25th. Tickets went on sale to the general public for the most of these shows on Friday, July the 18th. For San Antonio tickets, they go on sale to the general public August 1st. And one never knows if Paul will add more dates as there are blocks of time that are empty on that calendar. And most noticeable, no dates in New York. But for more information on ticket sales and for pre-sales, you can go to paulmccartneygotback.com. We're going to talk a little bit about what we've all been going through, the joys of getting tickets for Paul McCartney at the end of the newscast here. We're not going to stop right there. Okay? And although I haven't seen it yet, Kit has. I've been hearing really good things about a new documentary on Ed Sullivan called Sunday Best. It focuses on how Ed was a trailblazer and allowing black artists to perform on his variety show. Obviously, Ed was such a big part of Beatles history since the Beatles performed on his show, and many young people were turned on to the Beatles from watching their debut and subsequent performances on Ed Sullivan. Harry Belafonte commented how execs and sponsors said Ed couldn't put black performers on because the South wouldn't accept it. But Ed had a lot of clout back then, since his show was so popular, and he pushed the envelope as far as he could go. The show is a mixture of performances from Stevie Wonder, Nina Simone, and James Brown, with observations made by Smokey Robinson, Harry Belafonte, and Berry Gordy. It also, I'm told, has footage of the Beatles, Rolling Stones, and Elvis Presley, and it's currently available on Netflix. Now, Kit, you were telling us before we started recording here that you got to see this. You weren't too impressed with this documentary.
Yeah, I mean, I love the concept. I mean, that's something worth talking about. No doubt about it that he did book a number of black artists when they just weren't being seen on television, and so that part, yeah, I was ready to go with this documentary. It's the execution. It really, I mean, yes, there are some clips of the Stones, very brief clips of the Stones and the Beatles, of course, the first evening first time they were on.
Right.
But I felt like it bounced all over the place, time wise. I'm not saying every documentary like this has to be exactly in chronological order, but I think this could have benefited from that because it would show the progression of not only Ed having these artists on, but the progression of the music itself. And I was shocked that there was no clip of Sly and the Family Stone. And didn't mention them, didn't have that wonderful clip. I think they were performing Dance to the Music, excuse me, and Sly goes out to the audience and another band member would pull people up on their feet. And let's just say the people that were in that audience, didn't really look like they were down with Sly at first. I mean, they looked pretty stiff. So
Yeah.
but I was just shocked that wasn't in there because I thought that was an important moment for the show, and of course, who doesn't know Sly? So there were moments like that, and it ended just kind of abruptly. I mean, it was it didn't really reflect on the overall impact that him having the artist had on the stuff in the 70s and beyond. I mean, it just really, I felt there were just so many missed opportunities there, and instead it was just kind of a lot of clips, and then Smokey and Harry Belafonte, a number of people in this, in fact, have since passed, since then they were interviewed, Harry Belafonte being one of them, and and they would just say, oh yes, it was great that he booked us and it was important to us at the time. It just didn't really reveal anything that new or profound to me. So I'm not saying it was all bad. It's good for nostalgia and but it's just a shame that it was a great concept for a documentary. I just think the execution could have been better.
Hmm.
Okay. I think the most important thing is because that show was the biggest show on television for a
Mm,
variety show, giving Black artists that exposure was so crucial to their popularity,
mm,
So, Ed deserves a ton of credit for that.
for sure.
Okay, some news about Ringo. You may have heard that SiriusXM just launched a new series called Help from My Friends, Ringo and the All-Star Band. Mark Rivera, who has served as Ringo's music director, hosts the show, and Tom Frangione, already involved with another 5 shows for the Beatles channel, is the writer for this series. It's a 12-part series with a new show airing each week throughout the summer. New episodes premiere on Mondays at 11 a.m. and repeat Thursdays at 1 p.m. and Sundays at 5 p.m. And you can actually catch an interview that I did with Tom discussing this series, and also, lucky man, just interviewed Ringo for more than 2 hours, and that's going to result in a special that they're going to run on the channel. And
Wow.
they talked about his solo discography from Sentimental Journey on.
Wow.
Yeah,
Mm,
there you go. Ringo has met with director Sam Mendes, who is working on the 4 biopics of each of the individual Beatles because he wants changes made in the script to clarify the depiction of himself with his first wife, Maureen. Ringo says that, quote, Mendes has a very good writer with a great reputation, and he wrote it great, but it had nothing to do with Maureen and I. That's not how we were. We would never do that.
wow.
And Ringo spent 2 days in London in April with Mendes, discussing the script for the section of the project focusing on him. It's nice to know that, Ringo cares enough to get involved, if there's something that he's not agreeing with. The George Harrison compilation, Let It Roll, songs by George Harrison, recently reissued on CD, just came out for the first time ever on vinyl. It's a 2 LP, 19-song collection spanning George's entire catalog, curated by Olivia Harrison, including 3 Beatles songs that he performed live at the concert for Bangladesh. There's a couple of videos now available on YouTube that involve a conversation between Paul McCartney and the late Robin Gibb. and Kenny Babyface Edmonds. In it, they talk about a proposed tribute album that was in the works for Maurice Gibb, or Morris Gibb, in which Paul recorded the Bee Gees' hit Too Much Heaven. The album was to be produced by Babyface, but for whatever reason, the album was never finished. And so far, Paul's recording of the Bee Gees song and the other songs recorded have yet to see the light of day. We've been hearing for years. It was rumored that Paul had recorded Too Much Heaven. I've heard that Barry Gibb has said that, yes, it's true. Paul made a recording of it. We know it's in the can. Let's hope someday we get to hear it.
Mhm.
Another passing to take note of is Brian Clark. Brian was an artist who was close friends with Paul McCartney, and he was responsible for designing the front covers for Tug of War, the album Tug of War, and for Flowers in the Dirt. And he worked on the front cover of that album, Flowers in the Dirt, with Linda McCartney. He also designed the tour booklet for Paul for the 1989-90 World Tour. Brian was known for his paintings, his stage designs, ceramics, stained glass work, tapestry, and mosaic. And Paul gave an actual lengthy tribute for Brian online, who died on July the 1st, one day short of his 72nd birthday. Some books to talk about. Well, this is the brand new book right here from Luca Perassi for Press to Play. Going to have Luca on my channel pretty soon to talk about this book. Maybe we should get him on our show.
I think we should.
I think the more shows on Press to Play, the better.
That's right.
This is David Bedford's new one. It's called What If? This
Yep.
is all about certain possibilities of things that might have happened in Beatle history, or what you think might have happened if certain things didn't. Like, what if the Beatles didn't have George Martin as a producer? What if Brian Epstein never entered the picture? You know, how would things have changed? What if Pete Best stayed in the Beatles?
Mhm.
So they play around with that topic, and hopefully I'll be talking to David soon about that book. The artist Shannon, whose artwork on the Beatles you've seen at the Fest for Beatle fans, also many of Charles Rosenay's events, like the Fab Four Music Festival in Connecticut, will have a new book coming out called Shannon's Hard Day's Night Coffee Table Beatles Art Book. Shannon's artwork has also been displayed on the walls of the famous Hard Day's Night Hotel in Liverpool. It's due out August 24th, over 200 pages of Beatle paintings, art by Shannon, stories by Bill Heckel, who's the owner of the Cavern Club. Shannon has also made all kinds of merchandise with Beatles all over it: mugs, t-shirts, neckties, collectible wine bottles. You can check out her artwork on her own website, which is artistshannon.com. I know I mentioned on my other podcast here, Things We Said Today, a new 2-volume book series coming out called The Beatles Hit Singles by Martin Orkin. The series covers all the Beatles' US and UK singles in depth, with part 1 called Beatlemania, covering the years 1962 to 65, part 2 called Magical Mystery Tour, covering 66 to 70. Each book includes color images from picture sleeves, details on who wrote the song, who sang lead, how the songs charted, reviews at the time. Part 1 of the series is due out in November, part 2 hopefully next November. Thank you, John Bazzini, for that information. And also, John had information about this other new book coming out. This is in April, called Where the Music Had to Go: How Bob Dylan and the Beatles Changed Each Other and the World by Jim Windolf. Part of Amazon's description reads, persuasive, captivating, and bursting with insight, this dual biography by acclaimed New York Times journalist Jim Windolf dives into the surprisingly supportive, occasionally rivalrous, and always fertile relationship between Bob Dylan and the Beatles, uncovering how they inspired and transformed each other as songwriters, recording artists, and cultural icons. That sounds very interesting, especially for those of you who love Dylan too.
Yep.
A new book of photos taken by George Harrison during the Beatles era is due out in the fall of 2026, and it includes over 250 black and white and color photos curated by Olivia Harrison, taken of the group everywhere from Liverpool, India, and Shea Stadium. those particular locations. The book will be called The Third Eye. Clever title there. And Olivia issued this statement. I want to show people, from George's unique photographic perspective during the Beatles' early years, the moments when the whole of your life is ahead of you with unknowable possibilities. His images in The Third Eye captures that spirit. Interesting that this book follows Paul McCartney's recent book of Beatle photos, Eyes of the Storm, and one that Ringo put out called Photograph.
Yep.
There will be a new box set called Elvis Presley Boulevard coming out, and it includes a rehearsal take of Elvis doing George Harrison's Something. This is a 5 CD collection spotlighting Elvis's recording sessions and rehearsals at RCA's historic Sunset Boulevard studio. Thanks to Scott O'Rourke for that information. Also, just learned today, Pete Best and the Casbah Coffee Club will have streets named after them in Liverpool. Pete Best Drive and Casbah Close, Close, will be found on a new housing estate to be built on Everton Football Club's former training ground at Belfield in West Derby. The Casbah is actually less than half a mile away from there. Thank you, Neil Facci, for that information, one of our listeners. And just want to say that last week I saw a free concert in Meriden, Connecticut of the Laurel Canyon Band, comprised of 3 musicians, all of whom have worked with Ringo, Mark Hudson, Gary Burr, and Mark Morando. Gary himself originally comes from Meriden, and they are a tribute band saluting Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young as well. If you love the harmonies of CSN, and sometimes why, they have it nailed down pat, and they are really sensational. They just released an EP called The Laurel Canyon Band, right here. Does photo
Right.
look familiar at all? They copied CSN's first album right there.
Yes.
And it's excellent.
What is on the EP?
It's 6 songs, and they're all original tunes.
It's original stuff. Okay.
Yeah. And very much close to sounding
Yeah.
just like CSN. Okay. They will also be performing at the Cutting Room in New York City on August the 19th. But the prior evening, Gary Burr and his wife, Georgia Middleman, who's also a recording artist in her own right and songwriter, they'll be hosting a Nashville to New York show featuring songwriter Gary Nicholson. That name should sound familiar because he also has written songs with Ringo on some of these same albums with Gary Burr. You've seen his name, I'm sure, but he's written a handful of songs now with Ringo. And you can always find dates for Gary, whether with his wife Georgia or the Laurel Canyon Band or Nashville to New York, at middlemanburr.com. Gary is still working with Ringo, and he recently wrote that book called Reunion, about an imaginary reunion the Beatles had with John never had been, if John had not been killed, and this was going to be done as a tribute to Linda McCartney. Few more things left. The Long Island Music and Entertainment Hall of Fame will be running a music documentary film festival August 8th through the 10th, and on its first day, they'll feature a Beatles documentary called Building the Beatles. After the screening, there'll be a Q&A with the film's co-director, John Rose, plus a live performance from Billy J. Kramer. And the film will be shown on August the 8th at 3:30. And for a list of the weekend schedule, there's a link that we'll provide for you in the description box for our show. And it should be a great weekend. There'll not only be that documentary on the Beatles, but the one that we've talked about the zombies. What was it called? Hung Up on a Dream, Darren?
Yeah, I believe so.
Harry Chapin, Steppenwolf, and more. It'll take place at their Stony Brook location on 97 Main Street in Stony Brook, Long Island. That very same weekend should sound familiar to you, August 8th through the 10th, because that's when the Fest for Beatle fans will be happening in Chicago at the Hyatt Regency O'Hare. I know one person who'll be there, top left of the corner of your screen.
Yeah.
You can always check out thefest.com for more details. And finally, we wish a happy birthday today. We're recording this July 26th to Mick Jagger, 82.
That's right.
And also
Wow.
July 10th, Eddie Sywell turned 82. So happy birthday to both those guys. All right. So
Denny makes an appearance in the Billy Joel documentary.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
He does.
because he was on Cold Spring Harbor, right?
Mhm.
That part I found slightly confusing. It was either an early attempt at Cold Spring Harbor or something that Billy Joel might have started recording before Cold Spring Harbor. That part of it I thought was a little confusing. I know
Yeah.
that when Jeff was on Things We Said Today, Denny, sorry. When Denny was on Things We Said Today, he was a little more clear on the timeline. But because I think he left the session because he had been asked by Paul to join Wings.
Right.
There was maybe I was falling asleep while I was watching part one of Billy Joel, but sounded to me a little bit like they had already started work on it. And but then it was a brief moment where he talked about being blown away by the demos that Billy had, and that he was in there as the producer.
Mhm.
And then they moved off Denny. Enter the guy that what was his name? Artie Rip.
Yeah.
Last name was Rip. I know that was became the heavy in Billy Joel's early stages of his career.
That's for sure.
But it was great to see Denny in there, and I was watching it with my wife, and I was like, I've interviewed him several times.
Yeah.
Really? That was
That
a
he's on
reaction.
I thought he had 2 tracks on Cold Spring Harbor. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure.
I remember looking after we had him on Things We Said Today. I went and checked the album out, but that's now a couple of years ago. So
Yeah. By the way, you just reminded me of something. Since you mentioned the name Jeff erroneously, I just spotted on Facebook. I want to pass this along to everybody. We all know about what happened with Jeff Lynne.
Yeah.
He was doing his tour in the UK. He was supposed to have 5 dates. He went through 3 of them, and uh, the last 2 shows were canceled. And doctors told him he had what was called a systemic infection. He also was involved with an accident while riding in a taxi cab where I've heard he broke his arm because the cab driver stopped real short, and that caused, a problem with his arm. So he wasn't able to play the guitar in his shows. And like I said, the last 2 shows were canceled. And the last show was supposed to be his final concert ever
Yeah.
with ELO. So I noticed that there was a post on Facebook where his management has an email where we can all write to him to send him our well wishes.
Oh,
So
wow.
I thought I'd pass that along to you guys watching. It's easy to remember, JL for Jeff Lynne, then ELO, mail, at csmmgmt.com. JLELOMAIL at csmmgmt.com.
did you say it's easy to remember?
Yeah, I was gonna say that's not so easy to remember.
Just think Jeff Lynne ELO mail.
Yeah, that part I can
But
remember.
what about the other part?
Yeah, the other part.
A B C D E-I-E-I-O.
Okay, can you put this in the description?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
I thought it
Send
was
me the
easy to
info.
remember, Ken. Don't
Yeah.
put it in the description, Kit. We all remember it.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, we kid.
We kid, but that's I'm glad you mentioned it because I will definitely send.
Yeah, that was
a
so
message.
sad the way
Really
that played
sad.
out. I mean,
Mhm.
first of all, we know, and it's been it's been a rather mysterious farewell tour, because Jeff hasn't been well, period. I don't know if either of you saw any show on this Over and Out tour. But I had been hearing, I saw him at Madison Square Garden, so them at Madison Square Garden.
Mhm.
And leading into that show, I was reading things about he doesn't seem particularly steady on stage, sometimes needs to be helped a little. His
Mhm.
guitar playing was in question, tendencies to forget the lyrics. And when I saw him at Madison Square Garden, I was very tuned into stuff, and it did seem like he was having some issues, but I don't know what could have been causing them. There was definitely it just seemed as though he was there was a sharpness that wasn't there. A couple
Mm.
of times he did have to be positioned where he needed to be by a stagehand. It wasn't that big of a deal. I don't recall hearing any issues with lyrics, but I was paying attention to his guitar playing, and it did seem like some songs he was strumming, but I didn't see any chord changes.
Mm.
But then other parts of the show he was playing was obvious he was. So you thought maybe hopefully this wasn't the case. Maybe there was some sort of maybe issue with dare I say dementia or something like that, and he wanted to go out when he could still play.
Mhm.
And he had said there was an interview over the winter where he said this was just a farewell to touring,
Yeah.
that he intended to still make music. Oh,
Right.
that's great to hear. And
Mhm.
then you come down to the final shows a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
and it's like, man, the broken wrist. He comes through his last couple of shows, he can't play guitar for the first time like ever,
Yeah.
and then the whole thing
Mhm.
gets canceled. And you'd think that okay, when he gets better, they could reschedule, right? No, they canceled him.
Yeah. And that was it.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, there are a lot of rumors flying around. I've heard some of the stuff you said, Darren, and yeah, I mean, we obviously have no confirmation of that, but there's something going on, obviously.
yeah,
Yeah, and just wish
because
him well.
I saw Jeff Linziello a couple of times before the reunion,
Hmm.
the reunion, the farewell tour. Um, and it was fine. There was definitely something different on the last show last year in Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, because I was gonna say, I think I saw him in like 2018, somewhere around there, and yeah, he was fine.
Yeah.
It was a good show.
I
Yeah,
mean, he never was. The ELO was never a band that had an incredible stage presence.
No, I
They were a
agree.
studio band. They were musicians, I think, especially in Jeff's case, um, who thrived in the studio and wasn't nuts about having to play live. Um, but
Yeah.
all I know is before I even heard any of this news, I saw people posting on Facebook the performance of Danny Harrison, and Danny opened for Jeff Lynne,
Yeah.
and the video has the whole band doing "Handle with Care"
Mhm.
and "End of the Line." Danny sounded fantastic, and while
Mhm.
I'm watching the video, I'm saying, "Where's Jeff?"
Yeah.
I just didn't recognize him. No guitar.
Mhm.
I don't think he was wearing shades or, what you're used to seeing, the sunglasses.
Yeah.
And there was an old man. He looked like an old man on stage and he looked frail. And I said, that can't be him,
Mhm.
so
Wow.
it's really sad, but let's all write him and send him our good wishes. I'm sure he'll be
Mhm.
quite pleased. And from what I understand, he's going to be reading all of his emails.
Great. Okay, I will do that. Hmm.
So we want to talk about getting tickets from McCartney and the experiences we've been through.
How long have you got? No, no, I'm just kidding.
Ken, did you try?
I let my wife do all that work because I have no patience to deal with any of this stuff that goes on online. You're in a queue. You're being told you're 50,000, there's
Yeah.
50,000 people ahead of you or 100,000 people ahead of you. Then you finally get to your turn, and then there may be a few tickets left or there's no tickets left, and the prices are all over the place. And you have to make a fast decision. And I hate that whole experience. I don't know how anybody could put up with this nonsense.
It's gotten worse.
Yeah, way worse.
It's gotten worse. I did not try to get McCartney tickets because of the distances. He wasn't playing in New York City. I've kind of always had this. It's not a rule. It's just I've never really gone to see an artist, any artist ever, that's not in the tri-state area. Maybe it's because I'm spoiled that they always play the tri-state area, so
Mhm.
no need for me to go traveling elsewhere. I'll see every show if I can in New York, Long Island, New Jersey. So I didn't try, but what I was reading on Facebook and the horror stories I was hearing, and Kit, I'm sure, has some of them to share, sounds exactly like what I went through to get Paul Simon tickets at the Beacon Theater in New York, and even Ringo Starr recent tours. You get in there and the ticket the theater's cleared out of tickets, and I'm like, wait a minute. This is something's funky here. It's really unfortunate that it's become I want to use the right word and not like point fingers, but something very sinister has always been going on when it comes to Ticketmaster. It's gotten worse.
Yeah.
And I don't pretend to know what's going on. And the ticket prices also. I noticed Jeff Lynne's ELO, the Over and Out tour, the tickets for the show at Madison Square Garden. I'm like, wait a minute. I I I don't recall. Did somebody did everything increase by 100%?
Mm.
Because it seemed like that was the show where I really saw ticket prices take off.
Mhm. Yep, absolutely. Yeah, all the horror stories you heard, Darren, are absolutely true. I got in, tried to get in on the pre-sale, and had my code ready to go and everything. And well, first of all, the code would work sporadically. I mean, like, I'd enter it in and then nothing had happened, and then I would enter would get in like great, and then it would kick me out again. I mean, it was nuts. So there was that problem. And then yes, and yeah, you finally get in and they're like, there are 80,000 people ahead of you, and I just
Mm.
thought, oh my God, so I waited and waited, and exactly by the time I got in, which was a good hour that I waited at least. Yeah, most of the tickets except like the $4,000 seats, were gone. And some of the nosebleed seats were going for, in my opinion, astronomical prices. I mean, I could, I'm talking like not only nosebleed, but way off to the side, where you wouldn't even be able to see the screens. I mean, it was just crazy. And yeah, I was stunned at the ticket prices. Now, I guess though, they're not sadly that out of line. I mean, you just mentioned with the LO, I know, Taylor Swift, Beyonce, I've heard those tickets go for about that
Yeah.
money. So I mean, I guess you can say, well, this is not exactly out of line for concerts today, but because people were saying, oh, Paul really upped the prices, and well, I guess these are fairly standard prices for big name acts of today. But yeah, I was absolutely shocked. I did end up getting tickets. I went with a ticket broker and got somewhat more reasonable nosebleed seats for the 24th, and September 24th. So,
Mm.
or I'm sorry, November 24th. And so, so I'll be seeing the next to last show on the tour. And yeah, he owed us because he's been skipping Chicago in his last few tours. So yeah, we go out playing 2 dates and like ending his tour here. So he's making up for it. But yeah, as you said, Darren, something funky is going on. I mean, Ticketmaster has always been suspect, but this just seemed, I mean, the fact that, by the time you finally get in, all of them are gone, you just think, really, and how were all these people ahead of me that fast? There's just something weird going on.
There's a big scam that's been going on for a long time.
I'm
Mhm.
trying to remember. I think there was I've ended up in those queues um to start first dial in. But I think it might have been Paul Simon where I did luck out a little bit because I was in a very short queue, which made the fact that 5 shows at the Beacon Theater were virtually sold out, even after not waiting all that long.
Mhm.
Come on. Do the
Yeah.
math there. 5 times the capacity of the Beacon Theater. You're going to tell me in 37 seconds you sold, X number of tickets. It was like, no, something stinks here, and it's not me.
Yep. That's right.
Well, I think sometimes a lot of fans don't realize that the prices that they're charging are from scalpers or
Mhm.
third-party people.
Mhm.
Because on the floor, I've heard tickets from McCartney were $300, and then the scalpers can charge whatever they want. So if you see
Mhm.
$400 or thousands of dollars,
Yeah.
that's not Paul doing that.
Mhm.
That's the scalpers doing that. So, I don't know how involved Paul can get with something like this. But I do remember this was like around 89, 90 when he gave a press conference, and they were asking him questions about his ticket prices, which I guess at the time were considered high for that time.
Mhm.
And he just said, well, I just look around and I say, what is Madonna getting right now? And then he feels justified because he is of that stature,
Mhm.
one of the biggest names ever. Some
Yep.
people think he's the biggest name on the planet in music. So
Mhm.
he feels he should get what other people are getting. A
Mhm.
year or two ago, Bruce Springsteen was under fire for ticket prices, if you remember.
Yeah.
So I really think a lot of this has to do with the third parties that are involved.
Mhm.
And you can't accuse Ticketmaster, although for these tickets to be gobbled up so quickly as soon as they go on sale, how is
Yeah.
that possible?
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly. There's
uh,
something fishy.
it's a shame. I did not get tickets so far. I
Mhm.
think Pittsburgh was impossible because everybody on the East Coast, Pittsburgh was the closest, unless you consider Buffalo. And I'm still gonna try to get tickets, but anywhere where we have to travel, it's not only the expense of the tickets, it's airfare, it's a
Mhm.
hotel.
Yep.
Are you
Yeah.
gonna make a vacation out of it? What are you gonna do?
Mhm.
Uh, it's so much of a hassle now. But and my big fear is, let's just say I do get tickets to one of these shows, and then he adds a show in New York.
Mhm.
So I wish, because every time he's toured and he's played New York, I've seen him at least once. This could be the
Mhm.
first time when I don't. Well, he doesn't have a New York date yet, but you never know when he'll add more.
Mhm.
So yeah, I feel really spoiled through all the years that I've gotten to see so many shows from him. And if I end up missing out, I can deal with it.
Mhm.
Let other people who haven't seen him, give them a chance to see him.
Yeah.
Right.
Um, my wife doesn't feel the same way though, so he's got to see him no matter what. But
Mhm.
there's only so much money we're going to spend,
Yeah.
Right.
and I'm sure if it's affordable, if I can make a vacation out of it and can afford it, I'll do it. But I hope that he does come to New York. He usually plays New York and Boston. Boston's a big
Mhm.
city for him. I love seeing him in Boston. So I do hope that he plays here, but otherwise I'll still try to get tickets somewhere else. But
Mhm.
we're not going to spend a fortune.
Right.
Well, good luck and enjoy, Kit.
Thank you.
How
Yeah,
many
it'll be
times
fun.
have you seen Paul in the past? How many times?
Oh my God. I was counting. I mean, it's at least 10. I
Okay.
mean, it's got to be at least 10. Yeah, and the last couple of times I saw him, well, the last time I saw him was in 2022 in Orlando. And because yeah, he skipped us that tour.
And your first?
My first was 1989 December in Chicago.
Yeah.
And yep, very first. Boy, was that exciting. I will never
Yeah.
forget that. And still, I think the greatest concert I ever went to was the second time I saw him, also in Chicago at Soldier Field. And that was the end of the tour. So they were
Oh,
just, the
yeah.
band was just like on fire. I mean,
Yeah.
they were, you could tell they're just like, we're going to go out, with a bang. They had extra fireworks. I know they always have fireworks on the show, but I mean, back then, I don't know if he always ended the show with fireworks. I don't remember, but it just seemed bigger. I don't know. And yeah, incredible, incredible show.
And what about you, Ken? You didn't see Wings, did you?
Yeah, I did.
You
Oh,
did see Wings Over America.
Yeah, Madison Square Garden.
oh, wow.
To this day, I say it's the greatest concert I've ever been to.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So, yeah, and I would say, although I've never done a count, I've probably seen Paul about 30 times.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Wow.
But you know what else? I'll bet you I've seen Ringo now more than I've seen Paul.
Hmm.
Because
probably.
Ringo
Yeah,
comes around every year and he's always playing somewhere near me.
Yeah.
So, and if I can, I try to see him twice. You know.
Mhm.
yeah. I would I don't know if there's a way that I could ever figure out how many times I've seen Paul. I think I've seen every tour that's come through the New York City area, and not every night, but almost every night. Um, but Ringo may top Paul because of the frequency
Mm.
that
Right.
he comes through. So
Yep.
So, I've got a lot of great memories of seeing Paul in concert and
Mhm.
won't trade them for anything in the world. I'm
Mhm.
grateful for all the shows he's done
Mhm.
and continues to do.
Mhm.
Anyway, speaking of Paul,
Great transition.
we're going to talk now about the many duets that he's done in his solo career. And as I said earlier, I hope that we have the entire list here, but there's always the chance that one slipped by the cracks here.
Mhm.
So if you know of any, please let us know after the show. But do we want to start by saying our favorites, or should I just run down
Um,
a list of the songs and we'll talk about them?
I don't know, because I'm kind of curious as to what your favorites are. So maybe we should start there.
Okay. Well, since I've done most of the yakking here so far,
Mhm.
let's start with you guys.
Okay.
It, let's say,
Okay.
is it five or do you have more?
I have more, but I'll keep it to five, and
Okay.
then then I'll have some runners up. Yeah, so it was really interesting going back and revisiting these. Some of my choices I don't think will surprise anybody, but others might. So definitely I have to go with the Stevie duet. But I'm going to go with What's That You're Doing, because I just love their chemistry on that song. And it really, you could tell Paul was inspired by Stevie to kind of tap into his R&B funky kind of, side. And so some of the vocals he does on that, particularly toward the end when he and Stevie are like trading lines, just so much fun. It really, really is. And so I know Ebony and Ivory was the big hit, but I find myself going back to What's That You're Doing a bit more, and it's just such a funky jam. So that's with Stevie, and I just, we've said it before, wish they had done more together. I mean,
Mm.
I really do. Second one, of course, I have to go with a Michael Jackson duet. And I'll do Say, Say, Say. Of course, that was a gigantic hit. But it just was a fun tune. And that's another time when Paul seemed to be kind of inspired by Michael to, explore the upper ranges of his voice. And there are times where they blend together just perfectly. Like you almost can't tell who's singing.
Mhm.
I mean, that's pretty amazing that they were able to do that. Um, the song is so catchy. Love the harmonica, in the middle. Well, not just in the middle, at various points. And again, I love when Paul explores that R&B side to him. They, of course, he and Michael did three songs together, and the man is I know the man gets trashed a lot, and I mean I love their harmonies on that, but I have to go with Say just overall is a great tune. All right, the Elvis Costello stuff, man, that was hard to choose just one. I mean, there's so many great ones. Um, I think I will go with You Wander Too because I love the uh, going back and forth, kind of the optimist and the cynic throughout the whole thing, and I know at the time when the album was released, people were saying, oh, it's like Lennon and McCartney all over again. Yeah, I hesitate to say that. I don't think that's a fair comparison to Elvis.
Mm.
I can see where they're getting it. I can see that, like kind of comparing it to their lines and, getting better. I get it. But I think it should be appreciated on its own. And there are some funny lines in there too. I mean, just some clever stuff, really funny. Elvis almost roasting Paul at various points, along with the lyrics. They just had such chemistry together. They really did. I wish that they would have recorded more songs together. At least we now have the demos and in better quality, so we can appreciate it. Um, his duet with George Michael, and I have to admit,
Oh,
I discovered that years later. I don't know how I missed it. And I think it was, either Ken, you told me, or Tom, or somebody told me, and I was like, this is beautiful.
yeah.
What a gorgeous song. And I think George wrote it with Paul in mind, and you could tell because yeah, I read that somewhere that he thought about like he wanted to write something like Paul,
Okay.
like melodically,
Yeah. He
you
made
know.
a version solo
Yes.
that came out first.
Yes.
Um,
But I mean, when I said Paul, my meaning, like he wanted to write a song like Paul McCartney in terms of the melody and that kind of thing. And I think he did a pretty darn good job of it. I think, yeah, I mean, the original solo version is good too, but I really love the duet. And again, I think what all these duets have in common is just bringing out these other sides of Paul that
mm,
we don't always hear
right.
in solo recordings. And this was another one. I mean, it's just their harmonies are gorgeous together. Love hearing the two of them again, going back and forth and but instead of it being a cynical thing, it's just, beautiful and moving. So you get the best of both here, some great talents, beautiful acoustic guitar on it, by the way. And Paul just sounds so emotional on this.
Mm.
So that's another one that I think, let's see, one more. Oh, hard to choose. I guess I would go with this was another one that I had never heard of until years after. So Bad is duet, which I've always loved that song to begin with,
Right.
but hearing his duet with Lindsay Pagano, who was an artist who just happened to be recording her album at the same time as Paul's recording Driving Rain.
Yes.
Yeah, and I guess Paul just came in and introduced himself, said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And she needed one more song for her album, and so he said, "Well, I wrote this song called Here's it's So Bad some years ago. Do you want it?" And of course, because she was, I'm sure, a very smart person, said, "Yeah, I'll take it." And I guess she was surprised that he ended up singing mainly kind of harmonies.
Yeah.
It was a little bit of a different kind of duet, but you could still hear him, you
Right.
know, loud and clear. And so I love that song to begin with. And I just thought this was a beautiful, you know, this sort of slower version, and almost turning it into sometimes it almost sounds like a lullaby, you know, the way it's so soothing, and you know, it's just a different take on it, but it works, and their vocals blend beautifully together. So those are my five, but there are some runners up.
Yeah. They talk about being at the right place at the right time. Here's some,
No kidding.
no one ever heard of this girl. I think
No.
she was 14 years old.
Hmm.
Wow.
She made her
Wow.
first album. Jude Cole was the producer.
Wow. My
Yeah,
goodness.
to have Paul McCartney on your record
Yeah, talk about luck. Wow.
with a lot of luck.
Yeah. Ah, I see what you did there.
By the way, I should clarify something. I should have said this before we started because sometimes I think the definition of duets gets a little muddy.
Yeah.
To me, a duet is, first of all, two people and they have to share lead vocals. You
Mhm.
know, it can't be three people. It can't be just two people harmonizing together.
Mhm.
Like, whatever gets you through the night is not a duet.
Mhm.
Lennon and Elton John are harmonizing together. That's
Mhm.
not a duet. 4 or 5 seconds, Rihanna, Kanye West, and Paul McCartney. And Paul has a credit as the artist. First of all, three people, and Paul doesn't sing on it. So
Right.
something like that doesn't count.
Mhm.
Okay. So it's got to be two people, and there's actually one particular example here that I'm not quite sure if it could even you can even count it, but
Mhm.
I'll talk about that later. But
Mhm.
Ken,
yeah,
Ken, the first it has to be two people, obviously. What was the second one you said?
the example of a song, four or
Duet.
five seconds. You know, Kanye West, Rihanna, and Paul McCartney.
No, no, no. Well, what was the second
Was it
rule?
that it has to be two, like it can't just be backup vocals or
Okay.
harmonies.
Okay.
I
It's
think
not
that was
just
it.
harmonizing.
Yeah.
You have to do a lead vocal. You have to
Mhm.
share a lead vocal.
Mhm. So bad is a bit on the borderline, I
You
admit.
do hear Paul separately
Hmm.
whispering to Lindsay in the song.
Yes. Yep. Okay. Phew.
There is, though, a fine, there's a fine line between stupid and clever. No. You know, there is a fine line between what you get two voices. Um, I'd be interested to see if there really is a set concrete definition,
Hmm.
or if there isn't, there is now the Ken Michaels
Hmm.
interpretation,
That's
which
the
makes
only one that
sense.
matters.
Which makes sense. Well, it makes sense.
Yep.
But
Yep.
if anyone picked a duo with three people singing in it, I would have them removed from the show.
That's right.
That would be a trio.
That's exactly.
That's another show.
That's
Mm.
right. That'll be our next episode.
I will say this though, when we started talking the very beginning of um, Paul McCartney's being involved in duets, I never knew there were so many.
Yeah.
And most of these songs are sort of one-off appearances on someone else's album or single or something
Mm.
that was done as a benefit recording that,
Mhm.
you know, unlike like the Stevie Wonder collaborations and Michael Jackson, those were on Paul albums, those were on
Mhm.
Michael Jackson albums. You can't forget those. But
Mhm.
I was amazed that, you know, I had completely forgot about George Michael.
Mhm.
Um, there was a bunch of them. I've got a few lists all from our brainstorming
Yep.
sessions. Um,
And by the way, because everything is a complication when you're doing these kind of lists, I know I asked you guys before we um, decided to do this. do you include live performances if
Mhm.
they're not released?
Yeah.
I mean,
Because,
it-
for
yeah.
example, I think we should stick to just what was released commercially.
Released. Yeah, I
Paul
agree.
McCartney sang God Only Knows with Brian Wilson live in concert.
Hmm.
Paul McCartney sang Only Love Can Break Your Heart with Neil Young in concert. Those wouldn't count in this
Yeah.
case. Okay.
All right.
Darren's thinking, which is a
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering. No, 'cause I don't think I picked anything like that, and
Mhm.
I tried to single out my favorites.
Yes.
But that would make it a lot simpler if you drew the line and said no live recordings that have not been released,
Mhm.
because then we could be brainstorming. Did we miss anything? Did we miss anything?
Mhm.
But I picked six, and
Mhm.
I don't know if there was because I don't know how to count properly. But there's six here. So and how did I arrange? I don't know if I arranged them in any particular order. I don't think I did.
I didn't. No.
Starting off, it's really grown on me. I really like it. So I put it at the top of my list. Barbara Streisand with Paul doing my Valentine on Barbara's new album, The Secret of Life. Partners, Volume 2. It really's grown on me a lot. And, I know Paul's voice isn't what it was. We all know that. But I think he, for the most part, handled it well by
Mhm.
singing in a softer, not quite whisper. Um, and it just worked nice. And you really hear the song, you're like, it's a great song.
Mhm.
Had it come out a couple of decades ago, it might have, enjoyed success as a hit, and maybe more people would know it. But it's a beautiful song, and with Barbara Streisand involved in it. I mean, which reminds me, I still have to get my copy of the album.
Me too.
The next one I picked here was Off Flaming Pie, Paul with Steve Miller. I'm a big Steve Miller Band fan.
Mhm.
Used to Be Bad was the song. Um, I'm trying to read my notes here. Paul McCartney with Steve Miller. Yes, very good, Darren. You don't miss much. And that was from Flaming Pie.
Mhm.
I thought it was always thought it was kind of cool that somehow going back to the '60s, Paul and Steve were friends, and Paul had worked on some early Steve Miller Band um, recordings. Thank you.
Hmm.
And that all the years later, Paul goes out to, I think it was Colorado. I think Steve lives out west in the mountains somewhere, and it's a simple song, but it's so well recorded. McCartney's drumming I love on that.
Mhm.
Um, and it was one of the highlights of Flaming Pie for me. So I picked it here. Used to Be Bad from Flaming Pie, Paul with Steve Miller. Third one was one that got past me. And then I think it was a list that Ken put together. This was on Ken's list, and I was like, I don't know that.
Mhm.
And I went looking, and to add insult to injury, not only did I just not remember it existed, I have the album that it's on. I've listened to the album. I liked
Mhm.
the album it was on,
Hmm.
but I just forgot the song existed, and that was Eric Clapton with Paul McCartney doing All of Me
Yep.
I'd forgotten about it too. Yeah.
from one of Eric's more recent albums, Old Sock.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just when I heard he was doing an album called Old Sock, found that very humorous, and basically saying I was once God and now I'm an old sock. But Clapton has taken some hits in recent years for some of his things he said and some of his recent albums. To me, his recent albums really give me a sense that he's found like a peace in his personal life, and he's in a happy place, and it comes through in much easier going music. Um, and he's tapped into these older songs in numerous places. And Old Sock, the album that has All of Me on it. And like I say, I forgot it was there. When I heard it, I was like, oh, yeah, I really like this. They sound great together. So that's my third pick. And I'm embarrassed to say, and I don't know how this is possible, this one also slipped my mind. I forgot that Paul McCartney is one of the duets partners on Tony Bennett's first duets
Mhm.
album. I
Yes.
think Tony has put out two. I know
Right.
Sinatra did too. But Tony's album Duets, an American classic. He invited Paul in to do the Ray Noble song, the very thought of you. It was really strong, and in in my book, Tony Bennett's the greatest vocalist ever. I know in Frank Sinatra's book,
Mm.
he is, and he is in mine. Um, Tony Bennett could read he could read the phone book,
Yeah.
you know. Um,
Like, oh, that's so beautiful.
he was just remarkable. And being from New York, although Tony was from Queens, I'm from the Bronx, but being from New York and being an Italian American, Tony Bennett was my man. You know, most everyone was into Sinatra, and I love Sinatra too. But Tony Bennett was my man, and his duets album, like I say, has Paul on there doing the very thought of you. Um, I picked this. I don't know if this was. I don't know if this song meets the Ken Michaels qualification here, but it is Ringo's "Walk with You." Um,
I had that
now
on the
that
list too.
does tend to be maybe borderline because Paul
No,
comes
does
in
count.
during the chorus,
Yeah. You know,
right?
I forgot all about that one.
See, look at that,
Yep.
and I couldn't find it. The funny thing was, I forgot it was on Why Not. I'm going to
Yeah.
all of Ringo's later albums. I'm going, this is really getting sad. There was a time where I counted, I knew how many grooves were on the record.
That's right.
And I couldn't find where Walk With You was. But from Why Not from 2010, Ringo wrote it with Van Dyke Parks. That I don't know if I ever knew. That was fun thing to discover or rediscover. But yeah, Paul joining Ringo on Walk with You on Why Not. And I'll close it out with this one. Might have been like a last minute um pick. I thought this was a really cool tune. I didn't know of this song until a few years ago when this album was re-released from Johnny Cash. There was a period of time when Columbia Records dropped Johnny Cash, um, and like a lot of artists that were making music for as long as Johnny was, sales tail off, and Columbia parted ways with him. And this was before Johnny hooked up with Rick Rubin and the American Recordings albums. But there was a few records I believe that Johnny Cash was on Mercury. I think Mercury Records.
Mhm.
Hope I'm right with that. Water from the Wells of Home was the 1988 album from Johnny Cash, and New Moon over Jamaica was a song that Paul is on, and Paul wrote with Johnny Cash and Tom T. Hall. And that was a song, like I say, when the album was re-released on CD, a few of Johnny's late 80s albums came out maybe a little over 5 years ago. Um, that was something it was a pleasant surprise to find because I didn't know it when it was done originally in 88. So those were my six favorite McCartney McCartney duets. The ones that rose to the top for me. Now, yeah, so that's it. I'll leave it at that. Period there.
One song that I wasn't quite sure if it would qualify would be New Moon over Jamaica. And the only reason I say that is because for years and years I always thought the artist on the song is Johnny Cash, Paul McCartney, and Tom T. Hall. Now you hear Johnny Cash throughout the whole song, and Paul
Yeah.
does sing a verse, and I
Mhm.
think Tom T. Hall just says something like "Nice going, Paul," or
Yeah.
between a couple of lines there. So I really think that it should count because they're
Mhm.
those two main vocalists, primarily Johnny Cash, and it's nice on that record that Linda McCartney's on there and backing vocals,
Yeah,
and so is June Carter.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
I
Yeah,
think they're more prominent. June Carter, I
but she
think is more prominent than Tom T. Hall was. I don't recall really hearing much of Tom T. Hall, but he was one of the three writers.
Mhm.
So
okay.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned "Used to Be Bad" because that song, that's another one, I sort of like, the man gets a lot of garbage. Yeah, "Used to Be Bad" is another one that often tends to be overlooked or kind of dismissed. I agree. I thought that was a really fun track. I mean, you
yeah,
could hear again, you could just hear their friendship, if that makes
yeah,
sense, coming through. I mean, it really, just a great, and as you said, very simple, kind of a blues kind of
yeah.
thing,
Hmm.
kind of a jam, but it works, and they just sound, you just smile when you listen to it because you just think, I bet that recording session was so much fun
Yeah,
for
Right.
I
them.
love the guitar playing in that one too.
Me too. Great guitar work from
Yeah.
Steve. Yeah.
All right, so time for me to give you my list. I think I have six or seven.
Mhm.
A few will not be a surprise at all.
Mhm.
As you know, I'm a big Stevie Wonder fan, so I'm actually going to put both Ebony and Ivory and What's That You're Doing in my list. I've never gotten tired of Ebony and Ivory, despite
Mhm.
all the heat it's gotten through the years of being overly simple and some people very saccharine. I love simple lyrics. They get right to the heart. They tell you exactly what the song's all about. And we need a lot more Ebony and Ivory in the world these days. And the two of them, what I love most about Paul and Stevie is not only the fact that Paul respects Stevie so much, but they really do sound vocally so great together when they harmonize, when
Yeah.
they bounce off each other. And like you were saying, Kit, on What's That You're Doing, the first few times I heard it, I couldn't tell who was Paul and who was Stevie on certain
Yep.
lines. And when
Agreed.
you can master your voice that way,
Mhm.
it's hard to tell the two of them apart. And it's a funky track, What's That You're Doing? And we've said it a million times. I wish those two did more together.
Yep.
They have so much mutual respect for each other. And even today, even though we talk about Paul's voice not being what it was, I still would love to see the two of them collaborate,
Mhm.
write songs together. That would be, you know, one of the most treasured moments in my life as a Beatle fan and as a music fan, seeing those two continue to do anything together. But Ebony and Ivory was such a perfect pop song. It worked at the time to the degree that it was number one for 7 weeks. And every time I hear it now, I never get tired of it. There's a magic the two of them had together, and
Yep.
I feel it every time I hear that song. Um, where Michael Jackson is concerned, I would put Say in there. That's a great
Mhm.
track right there. They also had incredible chemistry. I wouldn't have thought that first hearing about Paul and Michael Jackson, even though they're
Mhm.
great pop smiths, tunesmiths, but their vocals sound great together. And the way they bounce off each other on Say is fun. The video was so much fun that they made. They're great on camera and vocally, they sound great together. And despite the flack I hear from the man, I
Mhm.
do wish that song would have been a single because
Mhm.
vocally they harmonize so great together. Great
Mhm.
hooks throughout the whole thing. I love the guitar work. I love the George Martin production on it. And, yes, it's very poppy. It's very sappy to some people, but I love it. It works. The only thing that matters is the end result to me. And the two of them really had great chemistry together.
Mhm.
Again, I wish they had done more together. And I do like The Girl Is Mine, but that's not on my list. Also, I'm glad that Darren brought this up, The Very Thought of You with Tony Bennett. Tony is definitely one of the greatest singers of all time. I'm so happy that there's anything with Paul McCartney and Tony Bennett together. I sure wish that Paul had done something with Frank Sinatra.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that never happened, but we do have Tony Bennett. It's a great song, a classic song, and I think the reason why they picked that one was because it was a favorite of Paul and Heather Mills at the time.
Mhm.
But you know, just the to hear the two of them blend their vocals together and to trade vocals, a legend like that, no, I treasure that recording. Also, I would put Heal the Pain in there with George Michael. That was one that I didn't know about till a few years after it had been released. It was first recorded by George Michael and as a, just a solo recording. And then later on, when he released the greatest hits compilation called 25, it was put on there. I think their friendship started from being at, was it Live 8, maybe?
Maybe.
They also, yeah, they performed at Live 8 doing Drive My Car together. And I think, oh, actually, George Michael was there for the Linda McCartney tribute concert. And he
Oh.
did an amazing vocal on The Long and Winding Road.
Mhm.
And somewhere in between that, they recorded Heal the Pain. It's a tremendous song. And again, two vocalists that sound perfect together
Mhm.
when they sang together. I'm also going to include A Friend Like You with Brian Wilson.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's a song
Yeah,
that
I thought about that one.
that
Mhm.
it's a great song. And the ironic thing is that Brian Wilson wrote the song with his friend Stephen Kalinich, who I know, he's a personal friend of mine. Um, Stephen's had a long history with the Beach Boys. He's written with Dennis Wilson, a couple songs like Be Still and Little Bird. He recorded an album with Brian Wilson. He did write A Friend Like You with Brian, but he wrote it for his friendship with Brian. The
Mhm.
song was not about Brian's friendship with Paul,
Right.
but it turned out that Paul sang the song with him. Unfortunately, on the version that came out, which is on an album called Getting In Over My Head, there's not enough Paul McCartney on there. He's just saying the title a lot, A Friend Like You, A Friend Like You, but you hear him quite a lot throughout the song.
Mhm.
There was a remix that came out that was put on Brian Wilson's own website a few years ago, and I talked about it. I even made a video about it on my
Mhm.
channel, and there was much more of Paul in it. And actually, one of our listeners told me that they put it back up recently, but when I looked on his website, I didn't see it there. But
Mhm.
just to have those two together, like Stevie Wonder, Paul admires Brian Wilson so much. He always says God Only Knows is one of the greatest songs of all time. And it's great to have the two of them on record. And I do wish, despite Brian's health problems, that they had done more work together.
Yeah,
Um, and it's a great song. The middle part of it, which is instrumental, which has a lot of backing vocals, is so classic Beach Boys.
Yeah.
When you hear that. And just glad that Paul and Brian did anything together. But
Mhm.
all these songs you can find on YouTube if you haven't heard them yet. A Friend
Yeah.
Like You, really great song.
Mhm.
I also am gonna put My Valentine in there. Um, Even though, I don't understand this one thing about My Valentine. If Paul McCartney doesn't have the vocals that he once had, he's still doing My Valentine in concert with his regular voice anyway.
Mhm.
But on this particular version, he chose to do the softer vocals like he did on Kisses on the Bottom,
Mhm.
and it works with whatever limitations he has on his vocals now. He found a way to make it work with Barbara, and it's so easy for Barbara to outshine anyone. But what Paul did was the right approach. He didn't try to compete with Barbara.
Mhm.
It was a really good arrangement. So I like the fact that Paul worked with the goods that he's got. He knew what to do properly with it. Still don't know how it would sound if it was his natural voice.
Mhm.
But I am glad that My Valentine, that again, I can say this for so many artists, that he did anything with Barbara Streisand. I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah.
And as an honorable mention, I'm going to bring up Tropic Island Hum.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's a great song that Paul wrote for his animated short of the same name. It is so Walt Disney-esque. And there is a female vocalist on the song called Marion Montgomery. And for years, I thought that was Linda.
Oh, wow.
I didn't think it was anybody else. And it's more of a speaking part throughout her song, but
Yeah.
it's just so perfect for this particular song.
Mhm.
And whenever I hear a song like Tropic Island Hum, I think of Jungle Book or a movie like that. It's just so Paul has the ear to pick up these kind of things. And if you never heard Tropic Island Hum, if you like We All Stand Together, you're certainly going to love Tropic Island Hum. But what Marion Montgomery brought to it was just right as another character in the animated short. So those are the ones that I picked,
Mhm.
and there's a whole bunch of others we haven't even mentioned.
Mhm.
So I guess we'll talk about them now. One of them that I think a lot of people may not even consider, but I do, is I Am Your Singer from
Mhm.
Wildlife, because Linda does sing a verse in the song. So I think of
But is that is that a real duet? That's just one
yeah,
that
but
gets
it's a
back to our
verse. She does stand out there. It's not just harmonies.
okay.
Mhm.
Fine.
That's my interpretation of it anyway. And I think it's a very pleasant song, and we all know how well Paul and Linda sounded together with
Mhm.
harmonies. So I would put that one in there. Would you, Kit?
Yeah, it's sort of a borderline in a way, but it is, I guess, a duet that they both, you know, that they both sing on it, and it's never been a particular favorite of mine, I have to admit, but for the purposes of our show, yeah, I guess I would include it. I mean, it's pretty much a duet.
Hmm. It's a pleasant song, and I love the recorders that they use in it, and it's great melody and all. Uh,
Mhm.
Another song, which many of you may not even know about, An Inside Thing with Lulu.
Yeah.
Now, this is a bit of a weird one.
Yes.
Um, Lulu made an album in 2002 called Together, and it's a like duets type album. And she made this recording of a song called An Inside Thing, and they mixed that with Let 'Em In. They have two different vocals from Paul McCartney, the original vocal from Let 'Em In from 1976, and a new vocal from Paul. And he's singing Someone's Knocking at the Door, Someone's Ringing the Bell, and they're blending the two songs together. It's definitely interesting. And there's even actually, technically, maybe I shouldn't consider this a duet because there's a guy on the record that does
Yeah.
rap on it. So that's really three vocalists. But if you're thinking Paul and Lulu, because they're the ones up front there, the two main stars, you know. Have you heard this song, Kit? What did you think?
Yeah, for the first time, I had no idea this existed until, submitted your list, and I thought, what the heck? And so I and I still kind of saying what the heck. I mean, Lulu sounds great on it. I mean, she's still had fantastic vocals by that point. You answered one question I had because I was wondering if some of those of Paul's vocals were sampled, and you just
Yeah.
answered yes, some of them were, but I could tell, yeah, some of them were not. I mean, some of them were new. It was an interesting kind of almost like a mashup, in a way,
Mm,
and uh, I like the best when Paul and Lulu are trading lines right before the rap, which wow, that was cringy. To me, that rap. Oh my God. Like, where we at? Where we at? No, no, no. Just No. So, that part really, if that hadn't been in there, I would have maybe I would have liked the song a little better, but it just seemed like kind of a desperate attempt to be, with the times, and it just, it didn't need that. It really didn't. But it was interesting, and as I said, Lulu sounded fantastic. I
Right.
mean, her voice held up very well.
Yeah. Well, I do like the sound of them together.
Mhm.
And, they're mixing those two songs. And I think it works on that level. I don't like the rap part at the end
Mhm.
myself. And that Paul probably had nothing to do with that decision.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
yeah. Have you heard it, Darren?
Where are we
No,
at, Darren?
no. I got to admit that one passed me by.
Hmm.
Don't
Yeah.
pass me by. Don't make. No, yeah, that one passed me by, and I do not know that. If I heard it at the time, it did not leave enough of an impression for me to even recall. But I don't think I was familiar with it.
I had never heard of it until you brought up. I don't know.
You saw my list.
Yes.
Okay. All right. One song we have to mention, of course, is The Girl Is Mine,
Hmm.
Michael Jackson. I always liked this song, and like I said, not to be repetitious, they sound great together. They're
Hmm.
bouncing off each other well. I think a lot of people have a problem with the spoken word towards the end of what they're saying to each other. It's a little bit too cutesy for a lot of people, but it was a massive hit, and it was the kickoff for Thriller. And, I probably like that song the least of the three songs with Michael Jackson, but
Hmm.
I still like it a lot. I
Hmm.
think
It's interesting that song, how big Thriller was, and how many hit singles came off Thriller, but that was the first one.
Yeah.
Always struck me a little odd because the others were more obvious singles. And I doubt they released The Girl Is Mine first because Michael Jackson's record needed a little boost, presence of Paul McCartney on it.
Hmm.
Um, but it's almost like the hits that came from Thriller after that sort of left The Girl Is Mine in the dust.
Hmm.
And it's easy to forget that there was that duet first and then the ones on Pipes of Peace.
Hmm.
Yeah, that would be my favorite of the three songs that they did together. The Girl Is Mine.
Hmm.
Um,
That would be your favorite, you said?
of the three that
Really?
Hmm.
How
that the
come?
two of them did together. I never liked the man.
Hmm.
And I was kind of indifferent towards Say. I think at the time I liked it. I was I wasn't going to say this before, but I was never really a fan of those duets on Tug of War and Pipes of Peace.
Hmm.
And I don't know why. They just never appealed to me. I felt like there was so much potential that I thought was untapped with Stevie Wonder and and Paul McCartney on Tug of War. Um, I don't know. Maybe it was simply because I didn't want Paul sharing the spotlight.
Hmm.
Paul doesn't need to share the spotlight.
Hmm.
But now I look at those songs differently years later.
Hmm.
But The Girl Is Mine is kind of a cool tune, and I still just find it fascinating that that was the pick for the lead single from Thriller, the album that has Beat It and
Hmm.
Thriller and all those other massive hits.
I think it was a kind of strategic move because
Yeah,
yeah, well, and actually for Michael Jackson to start, to have that be the lead off single, because remember with Thriller, Michael really wanted a massive breakthrough album, because as great as Off the Wall was, it only won like a couple of Grammys, and they were for like best R&B recording or something. I mean, it was,
right.
Hmm.
and he was really upset. And so he said, okay, the next album I do is going to be the big one, the breakthrough, and I'm going to have all different styles on it so it'll appeal to everybody. And I always wondered if that was the lead off single, because having it was almost like different generations kind of coming together on this song. I mean, they weren't, super far apart, but I mean, well, I guess he was only a kid when the Beatles broke up. So,
Mhm.
when he started. So, I mean, to me, because I remember that song being almost kind of an event, not just the song. I mean, a friend of mine asked me, he was younger than me, said, why was that such a hit? Obviously didn't like the song that much. And I said,
Mm.
part of it was just the fact that Michael Jackson and Paul McCartney were on a song together. I
Right.
mean, that alone was a big deal. But I'm wondering if that was part of why they chose that, as the lead off single to say, hey, I've got a Beatle on my album,
Mm.
and then of course, then more singles follow. But it got the attention that Michael wanted, that's for sure.
You know, I often wondered how come there never was a video for The Girl Is Mine.
Yeah, I don't know. Mhm. Yeah, that would have been a fun video.
I mean,
Yeah,
Say was such an amazing video.
that was a great
And,
video.
and they did make a video for The Man, which
Hmm.
you can actually see on YouTube, I believe,
Hmm.
but never for The Girl. And
Did they
considering
really?
the fact that it
They
was,
said they made one for the man?
yeah,
Really?
Did they really? I don't.
I didn't know that.
I've seen one where Paul and Michael are riding horses,
Hmm.
I guess on Paul's farm, I think.
Hmm.
It's nothing exciting,
Yeah.
but but they made something for it.
Hmm.
And still, considering this is the first single from Thriller, you'd think they would have made a video.
Yeah. It's weird.
Paul
I don't know
McCartney
why.
or not.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I've always loved The Girl Is Mine.
Hmm.
Anyway, next, You Want Her Too, which you mentioned,
Hmm.
Kit. I always liked that particular song. I always kind of felt like that was, The Girl Is Mine Part Two,
Yeah.
in a way.
That's true.
Uh, so they sang great together. I just the playing off each other where Elvis is the one that's the more cynical, you know, a bit more insulting, trying to make it more of a John and Paul thing.
Hmm.
I don't really go for that. But still, in terms of melody and lyrics, I like that real weird ending, that jazzy ending at the end.
Hmm.
Um, I like that particular song. But
Hmm.
they didn't really do any more duets. I mean, they wrote a lot of songs together, and you do have um, the the CD that came with the Flowers and the Dirt box set of the demos, and
Hmm.
they're harmonizing together, but they're not trading off lead vocals.
Hmm. I do love though, just to single out one from those sessions. I love that version of the demo of The Lovers That Never Were. Because
Right.
first of all, that's a great song to begin with. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a cut that I think, should get more attention. And just beautiful lyrics on, but hearing their harmonies, Paul and
Mm.
Elvis's harmonies on that. I mean, they really Elvis seemed to be, encouraging Paul to put a little more grit into his voice. And again, that's been a kind of a constant with all these duets we've been talking about. Paul
Mm.
clearly, is inspired by his, whoever he's duetting with
Right.
to try to do something a little different to match their, not copy them or anything, but match the duet partners style, or just do something that's different from what we'd normally expect of Paul. So on
Mm.
this version, I feel like Elvis was kind of, encouraging him to maybe be a little bit more like Elvis in terms of just getting some grit in there, and it works. I mean, it's just a stunning emotional kind of version. And I think it's just piano and guitar. That's, since it's a demo.
Hmm.
But I wish they'd release this, or maybe put some more, instrumentation in it. But I love it as a duet. I think it's beautiful.
I wish they would have made a record together.
Yes,
A whole
even
album
better.
Yeah,
instead of splitting it up.
Mac and
Yeah.
McManus.
Mhm.
Okay, Used to Be Bad we brought up. I think the two of them sound great together, Paul and Steve Miller.
Mhm.
So, there are some couple other songs that they wrote together that still haven't come out. I know Steve Miller's talked about that.
Mhm.
We haven't brought up the duets with Carl Perkins.
Yes,
Oh,
that's
right.
right.
Get It from Tug of War, which
Right.
is a fun tune and another example of great chemistry between the two of them, having that rockabilly feel to it,
Mhm.
and fun lyrics all the way throughout. They were a great pair together.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, and there's another one, right?
Mhm.
My old friend,
Yes.
On Go Cat Go, right? Is that
yes,
it? Yeah.
yeah,
Yep. And and it's a very touching song because, as I'm sure is well known, Carl wrote it after working with Paul together at the, George Martin's studio in Montserrat. And, Carl just seemed so moved by the whole experience that, he wrote this as kind of a thank you to Paul. And so it's very touching. I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say this is like a big highlight of Carl Perkins's overall catalog, but it's very sweet. I mean, it's and hearing Paul singing harmonies on it, uh, and knowing the backstory, it's a nice track.
but again, that's another example of great harmonies, but Paul
Mhm.
doesn't do a lead vocal in it.
Right,
So
that's true.
it's easy to throw the word around duet. But,
Yep.
I can't help but think of My Old Friend anytime when I think of Carl Perkins with Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
Yes, I think of Get It, but My Old Friend because it has, this emotional connection with Paul, which if you never heard the story about the lyrics in My Old Friend,
Mhm.
when Carl sings Think About Me Every Now and Then, My Old Friend, um, Paul had to leave the room when he heard the song first. And then Linda said to Carl, "How did you know?" And Carl said, "How did I know what?"
Mhm.
And Linda said, "Those are the last songs that John said to Paul.
Mhm.
Think about me every now and then," which also makes you wonder about the song Now and Then
Mhm.
from the Beatles. Maybe Paul connects that with the last time he spoke with John. We don't know, but
Yeah.
that's all speculation. But yeah, but nice work that the two of them did together, as well
Mhm.
as Carl Perkins with George too.
Mhm. Yep.
Um, So Bad we brought up with Lindsay Pagano. That
Mhm.
was a nice little surprise. It's kind of like A Friend Like You in a way because, Paul's just kind of answering
Mhm.
to Lindsay singing the song, almost like Walk With You, but Paul has a lot more to sing in Walk With You.
Mhm.
But it's still, you can hear Paul's voice pretty much throughout the song with Lindsay Pagano. And it's a pretty pleasant sounding
Mhm.
and a nice effort overall. And certainly
Yeah,
check it out.
I like the different take on it. As I said, it's so smooth, and I mean it's as I said, almost like a lullaby in parts. It's so calming, and so it's a nice, different take on it.
Okay. And we mentioned Heal the Pain.
Hmm.
Really, if you never heard this before, check it out, please.
Yes,
Go on YouTube, listen to Paul and George Michael. George Michael's one of the greatest singers we've ever had.
that's for sure.
Uh, I'm so happy that they did anything together. You got to wonder with certain people like George Michael, had he lived, would Paul have ever done anything more with him?
Hmm.
I sure wish he did.
Yep.
All of Me with Eric Clapton, we've mentioned. It's nice to do. That's an old standard right there.
Hmm.
And you've got Eric's familiar guitar work on it.
Yeah.
Just to hear Eric sing a line and Paul sing a line,
Hmm.
it's nice to have that on record.
Yeah.
Other than the concert for George.
Of course.
Yeah. Oh, that could count.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. I think that was All Things Must Pass, right?
Hmm. Oh, the duet. Yeah.
Hmm.
well, All Things Must Pass was Paul singing it.
Hmm. Yeah. Well.
Something something went from Paul on ukulele to the whole band doing the Beatles version,
Yep.
and I think both Paul and Eric sang it.
Hmm. Yep. I think you're
So
right.
so what do we have next? Tropic Island Hum I
You're
mentioned.
talking about.
Definitely check that out. It's a whole other world to Paul when he writes these songs. The songs he's written for movies, and then there's animated films. And the approach that he takes on that is very different. It's
Mhm.
just a whole other side of Paul. Um, and hopefully we'll find out what he wrote in the upcoming animated film,
Yes.
Clouds. We shall see. A Friend Like You with Brian Wilson, we mentioned, definitely worth checking out that. Um, it's a song called My Soul by
Mhm.
Nitin Sawhney, which I don't know how I stumbled upon that. I don't believe much was mentioned when it came out. It was
Mhm.
on an album from Nitin, who's a British musician and a producer and a composer. He made an album called London Underground in 2008, and there's some really good vocals from Paul, an aging Paul, but still a strong vocal,
Mhm. Mhm.
and really nice melody on that. Get a
Mhm.
lot of compliments if you look on YouTube with people who love that song, My
Mhm.
Soul.
Mhm.
Have you heard it, Darren or Kit?
I have, and yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, to me, it was more a bit of I'm trying to think of how to describe it. It was sort of atmospheric. It was kind
Uh-huh.
of, to say, use something the kids would say, kind of a vibe in a way. I don't know how else to put it. It was more than just, you know, a song. It just had that kind of vibe. It wasn't exactly to my taste, but I appreciate the different, again, Paul experimenting with different kinds of sounds, and obviously the Indian flavor was
Mm,
nice, but other than that, I wasn't as crazy about this one, but again, points to Paul for
Yeah.
trying
I
different
agree.
things.
yeah, it had like a world, what would you call it? Like uh
World
World
beat.
music.
world music,
Hmm.
kind of a feel to it.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. So we mentioned New Moon over Jamaica,
Hmm.
and there is Ebony and Ivory with Hamish Stewart, which
Yep.
they did live on the 89-90 tour.
Right.
Yes, they did.
And I think Hamish did a very good job. No one can replace Stevie Wonder,
Hmm.
but I enjoyed that version. So that's out there too,
Hmm. That's
which you
true.
can find on Tripping the Live Fantastic.
Hmm.
Okay. And if you want to bring up Walk With You, which was a really nice surprise when it came out,
Yeah.
I just, Paul added the right touch. And from what the story was, it was something he ad-libbed in the studio
Mhm.
after
Wow.
Ringo
Really.
played the song to him.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So there you go. Those are all the ones I can come up with.
Yeah.
Are there any
Yep.
we missed?
I don't think so, although probably there'll be some comments.
Probably. Yeah.
And like, what about and yeah, and if you do have suggestions of ones we missed, released versions. We're limiting it to that. So
Yeah.
not unofficial recordings. Please leave them in the comments.
Yeah. I know Scott O'Rourke right now is ready to type something. Ken, you forgot. But we appreciate that, Scott.
Yes, we do. We do.
He always tells me what I forgot to do instead of saying, I like the show, but just be complimentary first and then, add.
Then constructive. Yeah,
Yes.
constructive criticism.
All right. So let's wrap up the show by telling everybody what we've been up to. I know Darren's been listening nonstop to McCartney 3, but besides that, what's going on with you, Darren?
Oh, not much. How are you? Um, what is going on with me? Not all that much, to be honest with you. You're going to catch me on WFUV. I'm going to be off for a few days. Monday, what is that, the 29th? Monday, the 28th.
28th,
Tuesday,
yeah.
there everything falls. The 28th, 29th, and 30th, I'm not going to be on the air, but under normal circumstances, Monday through Thursday nights, 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., Saturday afternoons from 1 until 4 on WFUV, which is in New York City, 90.7 FM. And also WFUV.org. WFUV is one of the non-commercial public radio stations that is going to be hit very hard by the
Yeah.
funding to the Corporation of Public Broadcasting.
Yeah.
So think about becoming a member, supporting WFUV. Just go to WFUV.org and you'll find what you need to know, find what you need to do to become a member. And like I say, I'm on the air 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Monday through Thursday, and Saturdays 1 to 4, 90.7 FM, WFUV.org. And again, the website's where you go to make a contribution. And I'm on Facebook, so I'll see you there. I have 2 pages, so join one, I'll get you on the other. And that's really it for me. That's
Okay.
it.
The Kidster.
The kids. Well, I've got just a few brief things. First of all, Toppermost the Poppermost, we have more episodes up. You can find us at toppermostthepoppermost.net. We did an interview recently with Billy J. Kramer. Was really fun talking about his years on the charts, at the same time as the Beatles, how he recorded certain tracks. It was really an interesting conversation. So that's up there, and we've got more episodes coming. So stay tuned. But check out the website, and you'll find all the episodes. Next month, August 19th, I'm doing another episode of Classic for a Reason with our good friend Ken Womack, and where we talk about albums that are considered classics and really delve into why. And we may disagree on some of them. Our next one is Pet Sounds, and really looking forward to talking about that and really diving deep into that incredible album. So that's Tuesday, August 19th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. You can find out how to reserve your spot at my Facebook page, and I think I put it on our Talk More Talks Facebook page as well. So you can do that. And then in the fall, I'm going to be starting my next class, which is this time the history of disco. So you can bring your
Wow.
mirror ball, you can wear your polyester suit, but it's not required. It's not required, but really looking forward to this, really tracing the roots of it, why it took off like it did, the broader influences that disco has had on music. Really looking forward to it. So you can register for that. I have the link up on my page as well as the Talk More Talk page, and the class starts September 11th. So it's coming up fairly soon. But hope to see you there. It's going to be a lot of fun and a lot of learning. And by the way, you can find us, Talk More Talk, talkmoretalk.com. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us, of course, on this YouTube channel. Please subscribe. We're almost to 2,000 subscribers. We're almost there. We're knocking on the door of 2,000. So if you haven't already, please subscribe. And you can find us on virtually any podcasting platform, on Twitter at Talk More Talk 1, and you can email us suggestions, constructive criticism, whatever, at talkmoretalksolo@gmail.com. Darren, you were going to say something when I was.
Yeah, what was I going to ask you?
Mm.
What? I'm drawing a blank now. I was going to ask you about something you were just talking about.
About disco?
If there was one, is there a first disco song? And if there was, what do you think it was?
Huh.
Boy, that's hard to say because there are a couple. I mean, some have credited "The Love I Lost" by Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes as one of the earliest. Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember the name now. I'm blanking out. "Keep on Truckin'" by
Oh,
Eddie
yeah.
Kendricks.
Hendrix.
That's another one. And of course, Sol Makossa is considered one
Yes.
of the earliest
Wow.
influences on disco.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was thinking, it's Do
Was
the
it that?
Hustle, Van McCoy.
The Hustle, that came a little later.
Yeah.
That came like 75, 76. I think disco was kind of in really exploding at
Okay.
that point. But I mean, it's definitely, it's a great record. But I don't know if I count it as the first. There were
Okay.
some before that. Rock the Boat, it's another
Oh,
one that's
Makossa,
considered an early one.
But even before that, I would say Love's Theme.
Yes, Love's
Off the
Theme.
Red Orchestra.
Yep.
Brilliant record. But Soul Makossa, I think that was like 71 that came out.
Yeah, that was
That's
considered a very early influence. And then it's a great record.
there's a lot of R&B from the early 70s that you could say you can
Yep.
hear it was going to change. The music was changing and it could lead to disco or
Yeah,
have
Philly Soul particularly
yeah.
had a huge
Yeah.
influence on it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Okay.
Take my course and find out more.
All right. As for me, my own YouTube channel, which is Ken Michaels Radio, I just did an interview with Tony Kishman. Tony is the Paul McCartney in a Paul McCartney tribute band called Live and Let Die, the music of Paul McCartney. They tour the country all the time. And I'm actually going to see the band tonight in Connecticut, in West Haven. They're doing a free concert. But Tony talks about his whole history. He actually started out going from a rock cover band in a small club. Someone spotted him, thought he could play Paul in Beatlemania, and he was one of the McCartneys
Wow.
in Beatlemania. And he's been playing Paul all these years in Beatle bands and McCartney bands. So he has his own band called Live and Let Die, and they put on a tremendous show. Sometimes they actually do shows with an orchestra. And John Murjavi is in many of the lineups of Live and Let Die. If you don't know, John is the George guy in the band Liverpool. And that's the house band at the Fest for Beatle fans. And he's also in the Weaklings as
Good.
well. He's a busy guy, great guitar player. And so it's all about Tony's history doing this kind of work, what it's been like, the set list, does it change? You find out certain songs that he does live that Paul has never done live, that you wish he would. And you can actually find videos on YouTube of Tony and the band Live and Let Die doing McCartney songs. And Tony's voice is fantastic and very powerful. I mean, I'll just give you an example. No More Lonely Nights, he's done in concert. And John Murjavi does the Dave Gilmour lead guitar part just right.
Nice.
I'm very impressed with this band, and they mix mainly a lot of well-known Beatles and solo with a few deeper cuts. So check that out on my channel. I also did a recent interview, like I said earlier, with Tom Frangione talking about the new series on SiriusXM's Beatles channel called Help from My Friends, Ringo and the All-Stars, all about the history of the All-Star bands. And talking about the various members they've had through the years. And Mark Rivera hosts that. And Tom talks a lot about the lengthy interview he just did with Ringo. And hopefully, very soon, there'll be a special on that. Things we said today, my other podcast with Darren DeVivo and Alan Kozin. We just had Bruce Spicer on the channel, on the show with Al Sussman to talk about Bruce's new book. This is a long series of books covering the Beatles catalog, the UK albums, the US albums. We actually brought them on because we are now approaching the 60th anniversary, believe it or not, of Help, of the
Yep.
album,
Oh.
also of the movie. We talk mainly about the album, a little bit about the movie, but we're going to do another show on just the movie. And so Bruce has a new book out, Beatles for Sale to Help. It just came out. He's going to be at the Fest for Beatle fans, selling the book, signing copies. Al Sussman will be there too. Kit will be there too. And so that's our most recent show. We'll have another one coming up next week. My radio show, Every Little Thing, which you can hear on a lot of different radio stations. There's a page on my website, kenmichaelsradio.com, that lists all the radio stations that run it, when they run it, with links to their websites. But the easiest way to hear the show is by going to WFDU's website. They actually archive my show, and they have the last two shows up from the last 2 weeks, and each show runs for 2 weeks. You can find that at WFDU.FM, or if you're still an old-fashioned radio listener and you want to listen live, Believe me, I love you for thinking that way. You can listen to my show Saturday mornings, 6 a.m., and Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, WFDU.FM. And my website, kenmichaelsradio.com, has loads of audio interviews I've done from the past with people in the Beatle world, plus Beatles trivia, where you can win one of 10 great prizes. I know for many years, songs you were singing, Kit's Book, was a prize listed on my page. And so there's a lot of terrific prizes, like the McCartney Legacy Volume 2. Not that one, that's Volume 1 back there. But you can win Volume 2 by going to my website, the Beatles Trivia and Games page. Sorry for losing my voice. I get very emotional when I talk about duets. Especially, it's the Barbra Streisand Paul McCartney duet. I'm all verklempt every time I hear it.
That's right.
So thanks to all of you for watching this, and we will all see you next time. Dig into some of these duets if you never heard
Yeah.
them before. Go on YouTube and check them out.
Indeed.
Sounds good. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Peace and love.